I'm Don Mesibov with the Institute for Learning-Centered Education, and our organization, in partnership with the Potsdam Public Library and the Carlisle Law Firm, who have made our initiative possible. And I'm now going to continue with the fourth of 18 tips, which are, each tip is something that can go a long way toward establishing a relationship of trust with someone with autism. And they're simple to explain, but they're also things that most of us would not know if we hadn't been told or hadn't read about it. So tip number 4, room arrangement for consistency. Consistency and routine are critical for most people who have autism. And again, this is another strategy that relates to everyone. We all find it easier if where we find something one day is where we can find it the next day, if a room is organized the same way. However, with people with autism, it's critical, whereas many of us with executive functions, which a lot of people with autism don't have, can find a way around, can deal with, can address. So consistency and routine are absolutely critical with people with autism. And as one parent was advised by a professional, don't leave a lot of toys. Well, this parent was typical of many of us in that the rooms were scattered with toys, with things the kids would want to play with. And the first thing the professional said to this parent was, pick up just about everything and just leave one thing at a time out there, because what seems to you to be giving a variety of choices to your child can be creating chaos in the mind of someone with autism. Tip number 5, define the end product. People with autism often don't understand what it will look like when they finish a task. So some teachers have a left to right strategy, which is another tip that I'll discuss later on, but this can be as simple as putting the resources and materials that a child's going to have to work with on the left side of a desk. The child moves them to the middle, or the teacher moves them, or parent moves them to the middle when they're ready to work independently on them. And when they're finished, they go in a basket or some kind of a container that can hold them. But there has to be some kind of a definition of the end of the task. And a cute story that I heard about that was that, and this involved my brother, who should have known better because he's often preached the fact that you need to let people with autism know the end product of their task. But he was talking with a teenager who said, I have a girlfriend, but I don't know what to do. So my brother said, you can take her to a restaurant, you can take her to a movie, you can take her to the beach. About a month later, my brother ran into this teenager in town and said, how are you doing? And he said, oh, I'm doing fine, but my girlfriend and I broke up. And when Gary asked, why did you break up? He said, well, I took her to a movie, I took her to a restaurant, and I took her to the beach. And in his mind, that represented the end. That's what he'd been told, do those 3 things, and that was the end of a relationship. So just, again, like all the other tips, this is one where once you're aware of it, it's very easy for you to address it and improve your communication with someone who has autism. Tip number 6, be cautious with metaphors. Because people with autism take things very literally. And I say to some of my colleagues, people with autism take things literally, and they nod and they think they understand. But you need to understand how literally people with autism can take things. For example, a clergyman was addressing a group of teenagers in church and said, remember, when you leave church, take the Bible with you. And he looked up, and a moment later, there was a young man walking out the front door of the church with a Bible in his hand. But the other side of this, when I say to you to know one person with autism is to know one person with autism, is I spoke with a gentleman in another country who has autism, and he said to me, I'm writing a book and I'm sprinkling it with metaphors. And I said to him, but I thought that people with autism have difficulty with metaphors. He said, I did. He said, but I learned metaphors by listening to musicians I liked and to their lyrics and reading poems. And I gradually got to understand what a metaphor is, and now I use them myself. So again, we can't generalize and say that any of these 18 tips apply to every single person with autism, but each of these 18 tips applies to at least some of the people, and in most cases, a majority of people who have autism.